This section of the Torah that was just chanted so beautifully that you were reading along with in your prayer books, known as the Holiness Code, contains some of the most moving moral lessons within our tradition, including the commandment to love the stranger as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. This Yom Kippur, we have asked members of our Central Synagogue Welcome Project, a group of Central volunteers who work with HIAS to resettle refugee families in New York City, to share reflections on this verse and its meaning based upon their own experiences of migration and resettlement. And it is my true honor to introduce our fellow congregant, Jane Gins, Central's Director of Communications, Johanna Castellanos, and Carlos Amandaray. Carlos, you guys can come up now. Carlos and his husband Isaac were resettled in New York this past year with the support of our community.
Love the stranger as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt, commands the Torah at this and 36 other times in our tradition. I have long understood it as the expression of a deeply Jewish value of welcome, shaped by our people's long history of displacement. But recently, I have begun to think that it is repeated so many times for another reason, because welcoming and loving the stranger can be hard. A few weeks ago, I returned for the first time in 34 years to a small town in Italy where my family lived as Jewish refugees from the Soviet Union. It was a time of great uncertainty for us. We had been stripped of our Soviet citizenship and waited in this small beachside town to hear whether the American government would grant us refugee status. But I was a 10-year-old kid, and it was summer in Italy, and there was a beach, and my memories were of playing in the black sand and craving the ice cream we couldn't afford to buy. Being back in this town, at its central fountain that had been the gathering place for our displaced community, was surreal. I watched my kids play in the same black sand as vacationers, not refugees. I felt deep gratitude for my family's good fortune. And then we were approached by a street vendor selling handmade African bracelets. Experienced New Yorker that I am, I readily indicated to him that we weren't interested, until I paused. Because the thing is, we had been street vendors too. Our generation of Soviet immigrants brought trinkets, Russian wooden spoons, nesting dolls, to sell to supplement our meager savings while suspended between our old and new lives. We kids all hawked our wares in the few words of Italian that we knew. I had half forgotten that, many school degrees later, and yet there we had been, selling things on those same streets of that same little Italian town. This man's story was both unlike and similar. He had fled Africa as a stowaway and now made a living selling bracelets in his own refugee purgatory. It had been easy for me to other him and turn away from this stranger. It was hard to remember that we weren't that different. So now I think that perhaps our liturgy repeats itself not only because loving the stranger is part of our values, but because it can be challenging in the face of the stranger's strangeness. Lest we lose our way, we're reminded to stay the course.
I was born in Maracaibo, Venezuela. I was only 2 years old when my 26-year-old mother immigrated to the United States. She was in search of a brighter future for me and my sisters. Today, 30 years later, I find myself grappling with an existential quandary. What does it mean to be Venezuelan? Yes, I was born in Venezuela, but am I Venezuelan? I left so young. All I know is that I can't cook very well. My feet get tied up when I dance salsa. My Spanish isn't as expansive and fluid as I would like, and I don't have many memories of my homeland either. I feel a profound sense of disconnection from my heritage. Why am I telling you this? Because this year I worked with the Central Welcome Project to help resettle 2 remarkable Venezuelan people. They helped me uncover pieces of my identity that I didn't know were in me. I didn't realize that by welcoming the stranger, I was going to be welcomed by the stranger. In this past year, I have spoken more Spanish than I have in the last 5 years. I'm getting better. While celebrating Carlos' birthday, we shared a dance together, and I didn't step on his toes. That much. I've been welcomed into their home and served home-cooked meals that I never thought I would have again. We can't wait to celebrate the holidays together by making hallacas as a family. Teshuvah is the central theme of the holidays. Typically, Teshuvah is translated from the Hebrew as repentance, but it literally means return, as if turning back to something you've strayed or looked away from. I want to thank Carlos and Isaac for rekindling my Venezuelan spirit, guiding me back to embrace my roots, in many ways helping me return home. Last August, I lost my beautiful Venezuelan mother much too soon. Her presence lingers within me, shaping every passing moment, even today. While preparing these words, her remarkable journey came flooding back. An arrival in an unfamiliar land, her 3 little daughters in hand, braving an unknown future. Once strangers, we were embraced by compassionate people along the way. She paid it forward until her very last day. In honor of her enduring legacy, I will continue to find ways to perpetuate these acts of kindness. Carlos and Isaac helped me find a piece of my mom that I thought I'd lost. May her memory be for a blessing as she continues to inspire me every single day.
El 26 de julio de 2016 abandoné la pobreza de Venezuela. Recuerdo ver a la gente golpeándose y apuñaleándose por alimentos mientras hacía fila para comprar comida. Llevo esos recuerdos hasta el día de hoy.
I left the violence and poverty of Venezuela on July 26, 2016. I remember watching people get stabbed while standing in line for food. Those memories have stayed with me until today.
Cuando llegué a la República Dominicana en busca de mejores oportunidades económicas, Sentí que parte de mi cuerpo había desaparecido. Mi madre, mi hija y mi alma, y mis costumbres y mi espíritu, estaban todos en Venezuela. Por años me sentí muy solo.
When I arrived in the Dominican Republic in search of better economic opportunities, I felt like a piece of my body went missing. My mother, my daughter, my soul, and my spirit were all in Venezuela. For years, I felt alone.
Después conocí a mi amor Isaac, por fin un alma de mi país de origen. El 21 de marzo de 2023 aterrizamos juntos en el aeropuerto John F. Kennedy, en la ciudad de Nueva York. Llegamos aquí como refugiados después de sobrevivir a la homofobia, a la xenofobia, cuales soportamos como pareja gay viviendo en un país extranjero.
And then I met my love, Isaac, a kindred spirit from my home country, and together, on March 21st, 2023, we landed at JFK Airport in New York City. We came here as refugees, survivors of the homophobia and xenophobia we endured as a gay couple living in a foreign country.
Jamás soñé que viviríamos en los Estados Unidos. Al principio, cuando llegamos, siempre tenía frío. Recuerdo ir caminando por Central Park, viendo los edificios gigantes. Nos sentíamos como cucaracha en baile de gallina.
I never dreamed I would live in the United States. When we first arrived, I was cold all the time. I remember walking in Central Park, looking up at the big buildings and feeling, as we say, like a cockroach at a chicken dance.
Hemos tenido muchas sorpresas. Aquí me siento seguro cuando voy caminando por las calles con Isaac. Y la mayor sorpresa de todas es la familia que hemos encontrado en Central Senegal. You have been our best gift. Hemos sentido el amor de Dios a través de sus manos. De ustedes he aprendido más sobre Dios y el amor de Dios. Y cuanto más sé, más aprendo a amarme a mí mismo.
There have been many surprises here. I feel safe walking down the street with Isaac. But the greatest surprise of all is the family we have found at Central Synagogue. We have felt God's love through your hands. From you, I have learned more about God and God's love. The more I know, the more I learn to love myself.
Jane, Joanna, and Carlos, you reminded me of an important principle here at Central Synagogue. Always have a tissue in your pocket, because you never know when you're going to need it. And I need one right now, because you've touched all of us with your message and your lives and your presence. And we're grateful for helping to bring the words of the Torah right before our eyes and into our hearts on this Yom Kippur day. Thank you so much.